Chapter 11 The Dwelling in the Trees. When we had finished our dinner, I prepared our night quarters by first hanging the hammocks from the arched roots of the tree, covering the whole with sailcloth so that we might make a temporary tent, which we at least keep off the night damps and the noxious insects. My wife then busied herself in preparing some harness for the animals, as I intended to employ them the following day in drawing the beams up to the tree. This done, I walked down to the beach with the boys to search for pieces of wood suitable for building our new abode. For some time we hunted in vain, finding nothing but rough driftwood, utterly unfit for our purpose. Ernest at length pointed out a quantity of bamboos, half buried in the sand, which were exactly what I wanted. Stripping them of their leaves, I cut them into lengths of about 5 feet each. These I bound in bundles to carry to the tree, and having secured some slighter one to serve as arrows, we set about searching for some flexible bows. I presently saw that I required in a thicket at a little distance. As we approached the marsh, Juno suddenly started forward among the underwood, barking furiously. Immediately, the flock of fine flamingos, which she had put to flight, rose into the air with a loud rustling sound. Fritz, always alert and on guard, instantly fired, bringing down 2 of them. One fell dead, but the other, which was only slightly wounded in the wing, ran off, and used his long legs as if they were on stilts, with the greatest swiftness. I followed, yet should have failed to overtake him, but not for Juno. He rushed forward, and seizing the bird by the wing, held it firmly till I came up. The flamingo fought bravely for his life, beating me with his wings with great force, and it was only after a struggle that I succeeded in mastering him. After securing the bird, I picked out such of the canes as had done flowering, and cut off the hard ends to form points for my arrows, which I knew to be the practice among the natives of the Antilles. I also selected a few of the longest I could find to use in measuring rods for calculating the height of the tree. We now set off back and presently arrived at our resting place. Ernest carried the long canes and the bundle of bamboos. Fritz bore the dead flamingo, while I was in charge of the living one. I anointed its broken wing with the ointment made of butter and wine, and I bound it up, fastening the bird by a long cord to a stake fixed in the ground near the bank of the stream. In a few days the wound was healed, and the bird, subdued by his kind treatment, soon became quite tame and at ease among us. "I fear," said Mother, when she first saw the bird, "that with this many live animals we shall find our supply of food quickly disappearing." "The flamingo," I replied, "will not eat grains like our poultry, but will be quite satisfied with insects, fish, and little crabs, which it will pick up for itself." I now set about measuring the height of the tree, and first asked my wife to supply me with a ball of thick, strong thread. While she was searching for what I wanted in her wonderful bag, I sat down on the grass and made a number of arrows from the canes which we had gathered, filling them with wet sand to weigh them down. One end of each I tipped with the hard points that I had cut from the canes which had been flowering, and to the other end I fastened some of the feathers of the dead flamingo. I then made a bow of one of the strongest bamboos, tying one end of the ball of string to my arrow, fixed it to my bow, and set it directly over one of the thickest of the lower branches. Finally, it fell to the ground. It drew the thread after it, and by this means I found that at least we would need 80 feet of rope for the 2 sides of our ladder. I next fastened the rope to the string, drew it over the branch, and charmed with this result, I at once hastened to complete my ladder. I stretched 2 ropes to the ground about 1 foot apart, while Fritz cut pieces of cane 2 feet long, which Ernest passed to me. These I placed about 12 inches apart, ladder-wise, between the ropes, and fastened them at each end, first with a knot, and then with a long nail through both ends into the rope to prevent the ladder from slipping. In a short time our ladder was completed, and tying it to the end of the rope which went over the branch, we drew it up without difficulty. All the boys were anxious to ascend, but I chose Jack as the lightest and most active. His brothers and myself held the ladder firm by the end of the cord, and Fritz followed carrying a bag of nails and a hammer. He secured the ladder so firmly to the branch that I had no hesitation in ascending myself. I carried with me a large pulley fixed to the end of a rope and attached it to the branches that were above us, to assist us in raising the necessary materials in which to build our castle in the trees. On descending the ladder, well satisfied with my success and full of confidence for the future, I called Fritz and Jack to come down to help me to collect the animals and gather wood for the fire to burn all night and protect us from the wild beasts. Supper was now quite ready. One piece of the tapir was roasted by the fire. Another piece formed a rich soup, and both smelled delicious. A cloth was spread on the turf, and the ham, cheese, butter, and biscuit were placed upon it. Supper done, my wife assembled the fowls by scattering crumbs and grain to accustom them to the place. The pigeons flew to roost on the higher branches of the trees, while the fowls perched on the ladder. The beasts were secured to the roots close to our hammocks. Then, after prayers, I kindled our watchfires, and we all lay down to rest. The boys were rather discontented and complained of their cramped position hanging in the hammocks. I instructed them to lie as sailors do, diagonally, and they all soon sank into a rest except for myself. I was kept awake by anxiety for our safety, but by degrees I became more composed, and at last I was overcome by fatigue. I also fell asleep, only awoke when all the family was astir the next morning.